have prepared for you today is something that is much more practical. So it's less abstract compared to some other lectures I give on qualitative research. But just a bit of background, shall we start the slide sharing? There you go. Process today, yeah. Just like what I've talked about when it comes to qualitative research, it's a type of research that is wide and is general, but it can go deep as well. So it's a type of research that allows the researcher to go as wide as possible, as far as possible, sometimes beyond the horizons, right? Or horizon of expectation, and as and can go deep as well. So you can do deep dive and explore the unexpected, and see how knowledge reveals itself through qualitative research. Right? So let's go to the first slide after this one. Qualitative research, an overview of the wider ocean. There are others of qualitative research. Indeed, there are more, so 7 types plus. Right? I'll just focus on the 7 types, but then there are more, certainly. I also did talk. That is because my concern is that so far, a lot of people or a lot of discussion on qualitative research has been rather shallow, or hasn't gone deep enough. So I provided a 7-part definition of qualitative research, and that was in another lecture. Another lecture or series of lectures I've given is also on qualitative research or research in general, and talk about the 4 research strategies and philosophies. Hopefully, we will have some time to address the 4 research strategies and philosophies, and we may also touch on the 7 types as it relates to the research process, to the 10-step research process. But today, the main thing that we'll be focusing on is the 10-step research process of qualitative research. Right? So let's move on to the next slide. I have all 9 slides, more or less, right? Let me start with a quote, which is a different quote from what I've used presented last time. A quote that says, "I'm not this hair, I'm not this skin, I'm the soul that lives within." That's from Rumi, a Persian poet, a very famous Persian poet who is a deep thinker, who is a philosopher, who talks about life and the meaning of life, and very provocative when it comes to questioning different aspects of reality, and I would implore you, encourage you to go ahead and read more about Rumi. He has beautiful sayings, powerful sayings that really inspire the hearts and minds. So go ahead. And if you look the picture there on the left there, that's a Rumi. By the way, you recognize the picture in the middle there? That's what's his name? DiCaprio, right? What's his first name again? Leonardo DiCaprio. Good Lord, I forgot his name. Leonardo DiCaprio is supposed to play this movie he's supposed to play Rumi in this movie back in 2016. There was some talk about, I don't know what happened after that, but it'd be fascinating to watch Leonardo DiCaprio playing Rumi, the Persian poet, right? And Rumi, I really encourage you to go, and if you do not want to, explore his deep thoughts and philosophy, just go and read up on his quotes, beautiful quotes, powerful quotes. You will enjoy them. Right? So Rumi said, "I'm not this hair. I'm not this hair. I'm not this skin. I'm the soul that lives within." So perhaps what he is also asking us to do and to think and to see is to understand beyond the surface, right? Beyond the color, beyond what's outside, and to explore the inner world, the inner aspects, the inner reality. And to a large extent, qualitative research enables, empowers to understand the inner world, the inner reality, the subjective constructs of individuals, of groups, of societies, of cultures. Right? So go ahead and learn about Al-Rumi. Beautiful knowledge. It's just fascinating. Let's move on to the next slide. This is a slide that you have probably seen my talking about it before. There's a quick comparison between quantitative research question and qualitative research question, just to refresh your mind about what the difference. Yeah. So if I were to ask a research question, pose a research question in quantitative research, it might sound like this: what percentage of postgraduate students complete their studies in less than 3 years? That's the main question. After they have written 20 to 25 research methodology chapters. So basically, you want to see research methodology chapter, whether that independent variable can affect the dependent variable, which is the completion of studies within 3 years, and in less than 3 years. So can you complete your studies? This referring to PhD perhaps, yeah. For masters, then you should complete much earlier than 3 years. Can you complete it once you have a good write-up on your research methodology? So that it could be a good quantitative research question. The qualitative research question might ask a different question, right? How does the deep understanding of research methodology change the research experience of the postgraduate pursuing studies in Malaysia, for instance, or Yogyakarta, the city which I think symbolizes Nusantara very well. So it's about understanding the inner change, understanding the research experience, not just to quantify the percentage, to understand the experience, to map up the experience, to see the different aspects of transformation, aspects of life, aspects of meanings, and that is the qualitative research. So let's start with the 10-step process of qualitative research. On the next slide. So it begins with reflection or imagination. So you sit down on a rocking chair, perhaps, on a swing, perhaps, or on the beach, perhaps, or walking on the beach, or strolling through the park, or fishing somewhere, or you having a discussion while drinking kopi jos in Malioboro, the beautiful street in Yogyakarta, where you find students and lecturers sitting together, where you find the homeless and the musicians and the tourists and whoever else, and the families, the father and mother and cousins and grandpas sitting together, right? Ponder about life, talking about life. There's thinking about, reflecting about life, imagining about life. So you might be reflecting, a particular social problem, right? Why is it that the student activism in Indonesia has skyrocketed, right? Why in Southeast Asia, if you look at Southeast Asia, Indonesia students activism represent one of the most powerful form of movement, right? You do not find that kind of activism in Malaysia, by the way, right? In Malaysia, just to digress a bit, right? I have students, postgraduate students from Iran, who look at Malaysians demonstrating, right? We had some demonstration. They had some protests, street protests last time. Malaysians, when they have the street demos and street protests, while they're carrying all the play cards and all that, right? And they'll stop for a while and then go shopping. They go shopping and come out from the shopping with the shopping bags, right? And sometimes they stop, but oh, there's ice cream, right? Let me see the ice cream first, right? So the demos are not that serious, right? Whereas so my students from a student from Iran said, look, in back there, people get caught, and he was jailed for more than a year. That's how the experience of protest or demonstration is quite different, perhaps. Yeah, but things like that, right? When there's a phenomenon like we see there's a rise of repression, the rise of nationalism, the rise of protest against the issue of language, for instance, right? In particular phenomena, or you see a social practice. Why do suddenly kids below 8 years old start to smoke, and they make these little puffs, and then the parents are proud that they smoke as well, and they make memes and put in a Facebook and they show that the kids are smoking, right? Even as young as 5 years old, and they're proud of that, right? Why is there such a practice, right? Or you can think about social theory, a theory of change. How do you change a family? How do you change an economy? How do you change a society? How do you change the politics, right? By extending the period of prime ministership, right? Would that change the way the country is governed? By the way, in Malaysia, there's no limit to being a prime minister. That's it. So Mahathir, for instance, he ruled for 22 years, right? You add one more year, it's almost like Prophet Mohammed's 23 years of service to the world, right? So that long period there. So they follow the British system, right? So is that good? Is that bad? So you can debate about that theory, right? So these are reflections and imaginations, right? These are good starting points to start this qualitative research process, right? Reflecting, imagining, discussing, right? Having this discourse, either internally in your mind or together with people. So that's the first one, right? So you can come individually, come from you individually, or you could also be having this kind of reflection, imagination together with the group, right? Next is the next step. Once, after discussing all that, you have this curiosity, this inquiry. I need to explore. So you need to explore further. That need to know, right? That need to explore. That curiosity, right? Or you need to describe what is actually happening when students protest on the street, right? What can we describe the words that they use, right? Are there angry words, or are there a bit of funny word? Do they have sexual connotation in there, right? Do we want explanation behind the phenomena, right? Those are the because Tan Malaka said the beauty, the final beauty of students is the political idealism. You say something like that. Because you say, then reformation must be rethought, right? Revolution, or expansion of a particular theory, and you look at the theory, or you look at a particular study. You say, well, this study is incomplete because they did not study the protests that occur in Papua New Guinea, for instance, right? They do not they do not compare this activism that exists among women in pesantren, for instance, yeah, or in Islamic boarding school, right? Or there's a rejection. You might have this. I tend to reject this idea. Tend to reject this construct. I want to challenge a particular school of thought. That kind of curiosity, inquiry, which leads to step number 3, step number 4, right? What's step number 3? This is, you want to make your research much more concrete. You got to build a compass. You got to build the tool that guides and navigates your ship of research, this batra, this ark, this ark that will help you sail through the ocean, right? But the ark, the ship, that vehicle that you want to explore different oceans must have an important part to it, which is the compass. Otherwise, you'd be directionless, right? So, what is the compass? The compass is the research problem, research questions. That should not be research problems. Should be research objectives or research questions. So the questions are part and an important part of your compass. You start asking from your reflection, from your curiosity. You start asking the what question or the why question or the how question. Right? You start asking. You start putting it down and formulate research questions. And you from the research question, you say, well, is this an important research question? Is it worthy of an academic work, right? Academic degree? Is it worthy of a master's if you're a master's student? Is it worthy of a PhD if you're a PhD student? Is it worthy of the subject, if whichever subject? It could be international relations. It could be world politics, which is about the same. It could be the study of transnational corporations. Is it worthy of that study? Viable? Is it something that is practical? You can complete it within 6 months or one year or 2 or 3 years, depending on how long your study is, right? So you ask those questions by referring to the research questions that you have formulated. So you formulate research questions. These research questions will be your compass. And remember that all research is about answering research questions. All research is about answering research questions. So if you have a thesis or dissertation or paper, right, as long as you answer the research question and your research questions are master's worthy or PhD worthy or subject worthy, and it is done in a methodologically sound way, you have completed your research. You have achieved the goal of the research, right? Because from the research questions come the research objectives, which research objectives will reflect the research questions. So research questions is what that will concretize, will crystallize your research into a form of direction, a form like a compass. It will direct you. Well, this doesn't answer my research question. No, I will not go there. This, oh, that island is where my answers are. So I go to that island. So the compass is your research questions. And from there, step 3, we go to step 4. But step 3 and step 4 are basically, dialectical, meaning it affects one another, right? You come up with a tentative research title, a temporary research title, right? So what is the working that is the title? Be open to change. But the point here that I want to know is dialectical relationship between the title and the research questions and the research objectives, right? Sometimes as you fine-tune your research objectives, as you improve your research questions, you will also improve your research title. And you realize that, what I really want is this, what I do not want is that, and the title will reflect that changes, that reflect the changes in your thoughts, in your thinking pattern, in the logic of your inquiry. And as we talk about research title, we also look at the scope, as I mentioned just now, the scope, right? And the slant. What do we mean? The empirical scope, right? I have a wonderful, happy scholar student who actually wanted to study youth leadership, right? And youth leadership, particular countries, so Indonesia, that is. And I asked him, you want to study the whole Indonesia? He said, whole of Indonesia, there are 270 million people, right? Or from Sabang to Merauke, from Sumatra to the island of Borneo, there, it's wide. Oh no, we want to look at this, and eventually it becomes more and more focused, looking at urban cities, particular urban cities. So case studies of urban particular events is 4 selected. Youth leadership in politics, in religion, in university, in NGOs. Oh no, we want to look at particular youth leadership. And finally we have community-based organization. So youth leadership and community-based organization. So this is how the scope becomes more and more focused. And in fact, the more focused it is, the better your research will become, because it is an area that will eventually emerge as original. Because if it's wide, a lot of people have studied it, but it becomes more and more specific. It becomes less and less studied, right? Slant. So if you look at the slant is conceptual, right? So you can look at, for instance, youth leadership. You can slant it. Are we looking at the entire youth leadership, like we said, community-based organization, or we want to look at gender? So that will be, if you slant it that way, the conceptual framework and or the theory building is about gender. But if you look at the millennials, then the slanting, the conceptual analysis, and the theory building that eventuate from your research will be will be about millennials, right? Or you want to look at the Javanese youth leadership, then it be the Javanese slant conceptual. By the way, that is actually a good thing, because maybe no one has actually studied Javanese or Lampung, right? Or what is it? Oh, give me a Badui, right? So no one has studied that. So you can actually come up with something original. You can even do build theory out of it. So that will be superb. That will be brilliant, because no one has come up with that slant, with that conceptual slant, with that angle, right? No one has sliced the analysis, the research that way. So think about that when you think about your research title. Right? I have a student last time, a student from Middle East. So he came to me. He wanted to study Middle East peace. So I was like, well, I was two reaction I got was shocked and I was laughing inside. Right? I mean, Middle East peace is such a complex title, right? And such a well-studied field. Right? I mean, I seriously want to study Middle East peace. Well, he was serious about it, and eventually, we said, well, which country, which part of Middle East, which conflict are we looking at, and from what year to what year? You know, Middle East conflict, extend, for decades, and some argue centuries, and well, some will go back even the Moses time, right? The Moses time, this land belongs to the Jews, because there's been promised before, whatever. So something like that would seem a bit insurmountable, something that will be not viable to research. But what you want to do, there's the point that down there, that under-promise, over-deliver. You do not want to over-promise, under-deliver. You promise a big title, you promise a big research, but then you under-deliver. You want to make it smaller, more focused, more precise, and then your literature review will be much more focused, much more precise. And then when you deliver your findings, when you deliver your conclusions, when you deliver your analysis, right, you can over-deliver, and then you can impress on the examiners. Oh, well, you studied out, wanted to study this, and then you actually found you want to look for octopus, and you found sharks, you found squids, you found monster lobsters. Oh, that's amazing! And it's like that is what you want to do. You want to show that your contribution to knowledge is huge. Your contribution to knowledge is significant. Your contribution to knowledge is deep. In fact, deeper than your own research questions, research objectives. So you want to have that kind of design. Yeah. So the 10-step process is actually that I'm proposing to you. I'm presenting to you. Is a type of process that ensures you ensures success for you and minimizes that risk of failure, the risk of problems, right? And that is actually an important mindset to have when you carry out research, and to not to overpromise, but to underpromise and overdeliver. So that is step 3 and step 4, right? Now step 5. You have your research questions, you have your tentative title, right? So now it's time for literature review and research the step for research suitability, to assess the research suitability. So when you carry out literature review, what do you look at? You look at theories, concepts, studies, to identify the vacuum, the part that is not explained by the existing theories, by the constructs or concepts that are being used right now, by the studies that people have conducted. Yeah? So for you, when you carry out a research, academic research especially, be it undergraduate, more so postgraduates or masters and PhD, you must know the must-knows, right? So people say, oh, you're studying international relations or you're studying economics. Who are the big names in international relations? Or if you're studying about transnational corporations in international relations, who are the big names in transnational corporations? Who are the gurus, right? Who are the thinkers? Who are, if you're studying management, for instance, you must know Michael Porter, not Harry Potter, but Michael Porter. And it's the most quoted scholar in management, Michael Porter, the Harvard professor. So you must know that. If you study marketing, you should know the other guy. I forgot his name. If you're doing sociology and we're studying conflict, you must quote Karl Marx. So you must, if you're using realism, international relations, you should know who you should quote in realism, right? So these are parts of important parts of literature review that you must consider, you must incorporate in your write-up of your literature review, and to identify the vacuum, to identify that space that has not been explained before. And that is another purpose of literature review, not just to explore the ocean of abundance, but to look at the little island or that little strait that people have not discovered, and you want to explain. Oh, look, there's a little island. No one has actually seen this island. I want to explore this island, explain to the world about this little island, right? Or there's this particular straits between two islands, between two lands, that's great. Or there's certain currents or certain fish that people have not discovered. You want to explain that, and you want to show that why existing theory cannot explain this phenomena yet, right? So that is the challenge of step number 5 in this 10-step process. If done correctly, you will have a superb research, right? With definitely original, theoretical, and certainly empirical contribution. Now, methodological suitability and ethics. Methodological suitability and ethics is a big area here. Now, I'm also asking you, see that I highlighted the certain phrases there. Choosing research strategies and philosophy. Right? In my other lectures, I've talked about the research strategy, the 4 research strategies: the inductive, deductive, retroductive, and abductive. Right? And it's accompanying philosophy in positivism, critical rationalism, scientific realism, as well as interpretivism. Right? So you will need to know and match the research strategy and philosophy with your methodology, with your research. And then identify the research type. Which particular research type? You must remember, my other lecture or presentation, I talked about the 7 research types, right? So you will need to match the right research type, right? The right research methodology to answer your research questions. Remember, research question is the compass, where you want to go. Methodology is how do you want to get there? How do you want to access the findings? How do you want to access the data to answer your research questions, right? So to know that, you need to have the right methodology, the right plan to get there. So choosing the strategy and philosophy is vitally important, and choosing the right suitable research methodology, the type, right? Either phenomenology or ethnography or case study. That we'll talk about it if we have time later on. Right, is equally important. Ethics. Sometimes we take for granted by ethics, but ethics is becoming more and more important right now. You do have to consider certain ethical concerns. Hopefully, I'll address it in a later process later on. But suffice it is for me to say that if you do not consider ethics, you are not considering an important part, an integral part of research, right? Which is doing it in a responsible way, doing it in a way that will not harm the subjects or informants or respondents of your research, or the beneficiaries of your research, or yourself, or your research team, or the field, or your profession, right? So there's this consideration you might have, right? And then the research suitability, choosing the right one, matching your research with your research question will also entail identifying possible research sites and possible research sample, right? So this is part of, so where do you want to study the phenomenon you said you want to study? Where do you want to, who do you want sample, right? Are you sampling particular groups of people? Are you sampling, you are doing some kind of random sampling? Are you doing this purposes sampling? We'll talk about that. Or are you studying between communities or regions, or you're studying case, the case comparing conflict 1 and conflict 2, conflict between 2 countries, conflict with the 3 countries. Are you doing that kind of comparative study? So this is the possible research sites. So where do you want to study and whom do you want to study? Are you is your sample an organization instead of an individual or groups of people? So these are things that you want to contemplate and think about as you find the right research strategy and research type, as you read your literature together. Right? This is step number 5. So there are 10 steps. Following from that, here we go into a much deeper discussion about sampling instruments. Right? So when we talk about sampling, is about we are discussing which sample, how do you, where, and how do you want your answer, your question to be answered by whom, right? So there's the random sampling, purposive sampling, snowballing sampling. Purposive sampling is also known as purposeful sampling, right? So these are decisions that you must make when you talk about your sampling, right? Why did you choose that, and why did you not choose the other one? And when it comes to sampling, there's also the selection criteria. You don't just select a particular sample, right? You must give justification to why you choose that particular sample, that particular site, that particular place that you want to study, right? And giving resource constraint that you lack the funding and all that is not good reason. It's not a methodological reason to choose one particular sample or one particular site, right? And why do you choose one site and why not choosing 2 sites? Is one site enough, or is one group enough, or might need to have more to come up with a better understanding, right? So that is the selection criteria, and that's the justification. When it comes to instruments, right? Still step number 6. When it comes to instrument, there's document analysis, observation, survey, interviews, FGDs. Right? Those are the normal, conventional instruments. But let me share you some thoughts about document analysis. You do not just say document analysis that you're doing, but you got to specify what type of documents are you looking at. Are you looking at meeting minutes? Are you looking at the annual reports? Are you looking at diaries? Are you looking at social media entries? Are you looking at postings? Are you looking at visuals? Are you looking at words? You know, how you're looking at what type of document analysis actually, and why do you choose that particular set of documents, right? So it must be systematic. Although people say qualitative research, and people have this impression that qualitative research is like, you know, just jump into the sea and see what you discover and get yourself drenched and wet and just immerse yourself, you know, in this world of humans and society and culture, and let all this knowledge, through the process of osmosis go into your mind. There must be a systematic method. Otherwise, we are not doing research, or we are not doing a social scientific research. There must be a system behind that particular data gathering, right? So it's not as simple. When you say observation, right? How are you carrying out the observation? Is it participant observation or non-participant observation? If you are saying observation, are you doing observation that's systematic? What time are you observing? Is it the same time that you're observing the group in the morning? Well, why do you choose morning? Why not in the afternoon? Why not in the evening? Because people might have different mood swings, you have different tendencies, different practices in the morning, as opposed to the afternoon, or as opposed to the evening. People feel much more tired maybe in the evening, or people feel much more relieved in the evening. So those are the factors you might want to consider. You must consider rather in your observation, if you talk about observation. So likewise, surveys and interviews. So there's always a way, a systematic way, a systematic logic to the way you access your data, the instruments. Why do you choose that kind of instrument? Why not the other instrument? FGDs, right? FGDs is a well-developed area. The focus group discussion is a great, wonderful method, right? But you got to justify why you choose this particular members or group of members in this particular group. You put all women in one group versus a mix of women and men together, would that be a different thing? Or you put all from one party, one political party, and the other one from another political party, you might have different findings. As when you put them together, they might be more diplomatic, especially in our Asian culture. You do not want to offend the other person, so you do not want, maybe, right? Maybe not. Right? So you got to justify that. Or you want to have a mixed type of focus group discussion so that you can see different findings from, and reduce what is called the social desirability effect. And they say socially desirable things to appease, to make sound good. So you won't offend the researcher, they won't offend the interviewer, right? So these are considerations when you have samplings and you have instruments, right? Temporal characteristics, right? Why do you choose? You say, oh, I'm going to do research between 2015 to 2020. Why did it take this 5 years? Why not 6 years? Why not 7 years, right? So what is the logic when you take this? Is that the 5 years, does it represent a particular period, or is it a cycle, or you're looking at a particular president, and now that president has performed the last one round or two rounds? You got to come up with justification and not just a number like that. So the time, the period must be methodologically and conceptually justified as well. And sometimes when we talk about time, and the time might influence the results, right? We will look at, and Dr. Ali will tell you this, right? The periods under the rule of the relations between Malaysia and Indonesia under Sukarno and Tunku Abdul Rahman was different from the period under Suharto and Abdul Razak, right? So different periods might reveal different type of findings. So you want to be able to scope. You use the right temporal characteristics to answer your research question, so to match your research question. So that is step number 6. Right? Step number 7 is gathering and managing data, right? Sometimes I find it a bit humorous, right? When people say, "Oh, data collection or data collection, Envivo, SPSS." That is a software, right? But when we talk about gathering data, there's a whole process of gathering data and managing data. There's a consent form, and how do you get consent from the respondents or informants or interviewees or subjects, whatever you call them, right? Do you have a consent form? Or are you studying a big community, a village, right? How do you approach that? So you study, how do you study a village, right? And by the way, can international relations study village? The answer is yes. Now international relations has become a big, wide, comprehensive field, right? When I was a visiting professor at UNER, Universitas Airlangga, there was proposals presented to me, and it was about studying a community in Lombok, right? Lombok, where they only solat 3 times, if I'm not mistaken, right? A day. Right? And the Muslims are supposed to have compulsory solat